In the twilight, when the city of New York began to twinkle with lights like scattered precious stones upon the dark velvet of night, a luxurious apartment in the very heart of Manhattan was awakening to new life. In this quiet haven, where every detail of the interior, from the elegantly carved moldings to the soft, silky glow of the table lamps, spoke of a tasteful blend of coziness and inevitable tension, fate was preparing to weave two souls into its net. Avery sat by a large window overlooking an endless stream of lights and shadows, gazing into a nocturnal landscape that was familiar to her yet always remained a mystery. Her eyes were filled with subtle emotions, reflecting an inner thirst for change and an insatiable desire to experience something new. The gentle rustle of the evening wind playing with the curtains seemed to her like a quiet harbinger of the impending tempestuous night, filled with promises and secrets. Every minute detail, the barely perceptible flutter of her eyelashes, the slight glimmer in the depths of her eyes, spoke of something ripening in her soul that was more than just a longing for intimacy. At that very moment, Cole entered the room, a man with a gentle yet confident gait, whose gaze immediately fixed on Avery. His face, illuminated by the subdued light, expressed not only tenderness but also a subtle anxiety, as if he himself sensed that something unexpected was brewing between them. He drew closer, and their eyes met. In that silent dialogue lay as many questions and hopes as could be contained in a single moment. Cole cautiously extended his hand, and his palm, warm and slightly trembling with excitement, gently brushed against Avery's shoulder. It was a barely noticeable touch, yet it held a power capable of awakening the dormant depths of the soul. Every movement of his fingers, tenderly gliding over her skin, was like a promise of new sensations, a promise of change, a promise that the familiar would yield to the unknown. In that very second, time seemed to slow down. A whisper, barely discernible, almost merged with the rhythm of her heart as she felt every nerve in her body respond to the touch, as if the universe itself were taking a deep breath before a storm. The atmosphere in the room became almost sacred. There was no room for random words here, only for quiet understanding and a mutual anticipation of something greater. Avery lifted her eyes, and a spark of determination danced in her gaze. She knew that every touch, every glance, every unspoken word between them was part of a delicate choreography in which they were not merely participants but the very creators of a new reality. Her thoughts, hidden behind the gentle features of her face, oscillated between a sense of refined comfort and an insatiable thirst for change. In her inner world, echoes of a quiet rebellion resounded, a rebellion against the mundane, a rebellion that demanded the courage to explore the uncharted facets of her own soul. Watching her shifting expressions, Cole felt a stirring within him, a desire not only to love but also to protect, support, and reveal to her every facet of life. He stepped closer, his breath growing warmer, and his eyes conveyed a sincerity capable of melting even the strongest chains of doubt. Every one of his movements was measured and precise, as if he had long been preparing for this very moment to show Avery that love could be more than a quiet acquiescence, it could be a genuine quest for profound happiness. The room, filled with soft shadows and muted light, seemed to transform into the arena for their secret ritual, a ritual of awakening in which every sound, every touch, and even the whisper of the wind became part of a unified symphonic composition. A subtle energy hovered between them, promising change, new discoveries, and the inevitable merging of two worlds, a world of serenity and a world of passionate desires. That night, everything teetered on the brink. Everything was a promise of the transformation to come. Avery felt her soul calling out for adventure, her heart beating in time with the anticipation of unfamiliar sensations. And in that moment, as the world around them dissolved into the gentle shimmer of the city's lights, they both knew tonight would be the starting point for a journey that would change their lives forever. Thus, in the quiet luxury of their abode, a desire was awakened, not merely a physical longing, but a yearning for a deep, all-encompassing connection that could answer the most intimate questions of the soul. And while New York City continued to pulsate with its own rhythm, within that apartment a story was being born, in which every second was imbued with magic and every touch served as a harbinger of a new world. The morning sun timidly filtered through the semi-transparent curtains, diffusing a soft light across the empty kitchen of the luxurious Manhattan apartment. After that tempestuous night, when every touch and every whisper had left its mark on their souls, a silence fell upon the two of them, a silence filled with unspoken questions and inner struggles. Avery sat at a massive wooden table, cradling a mug of hot coffee from which a barely perceptible steam rose. She tried to quiet the images that flared in her memory, not only those that had given her immediate pleasure, but also those that stirred up doubts. A subtle uncertainty was reflected in her eyes. Between the fervor of passion and the coldness of reality, a quiet anxiety had taken root. An inner voice whispered that behind every moment of ecstasy, there might lie an even deeper need, not always comprehensible or unequivocal. At that very moment, almost imperceptibly, Cole entered the kitchen. His steps were soft, as if he feared to disturb the fragile atmosphere of the morning calm. He stopped just a few steps away from Avery, watching her with an intense gaze that expressed both care and growing uncertainty. In his eyes flickered unspoken questions. Am I enough for you? A question that echoed in his thoughts with every new dawn, like the reverberation of nocturnal experiences. The silence stretching between them was not merely an absence of words. It became an arena for internal dialogues, where every glance and every movement carried weight and significance. Gathering all his courage, Cole quietly murmured, almost in a whisper, addressing Avery, "Are you all right?" His voice was filled with sincerity, yet behind the soft intonations lay the pain of doubt. Avery merely nodded slightly, her gaze fixed on a space where the past and the future intertwined in an endless stream of thoughts. In the silence of the kitchen, where the sounds of the waking city were but a distant background, every gesture became a symbol of unspoken feelings. Avery's soft sigh, the gentle rustle of her hands on the table, each spoke of a universe of questions brewing within her. Her soul, once enveloped in the flame of nocturnal passion, now sought answers to the questions that troubled her heart. Did she not require something more than what a conventional life could offer? And was there not, in that longing, a hidden need to be heard, understood, and accepted unconditionally? Cole watched her, trying to read every minute detail of her expression. He saw sparks of determination mingled with a subtle sadness flickering in her eyes. The fine lines of fatigue on her face testified that the passion of the night had left its mark, along with uninvited doubts. Their gazes intersected, and in that silent dialogue, they both understood that their life had transcended the usual boundaries, leaving behind old fears while forever unveiling new horizons of inner struggle. That silence, heavy and filled with anticipation, became the starting point for unresolved questions about love, passion, and self-worth. And although the morning brought the promise of a new day, in the hearts of Avery and Cole there resounded a quiet yet insistent premonition. At the threshold of change, as inevitable as the dawn itself, lay a truth capable of forever altering their destinies. The moment arrived when all the unresolved questions and the quiet tension that had been accumulating in the silence of the previous morning finally surfaced. In a world where every touch and every look was imbued with deep meaning, Avery felt something crackle inside her from the tension. It was not merely a desire, it was a call from the soul, demanding change, a call that could no longer be ignored. In the silence of the kitchen, where the last echoes of morning light played upon faces, Avery sat, absorbed in thought, as if trying to read the signs on her own hands. Her thoughts swirled like autumn leaves in the wind, memories of the night, of tender and tumultuous moments, and at the same time an indistinct feeling that something important was missing. That need was like a quiet but insistent pulse that shattered the calm and demanded release. Cole, standing nearby, felt the weight of those unspoken expectations upon him. His gaze searched for answers in Avery's reflection, trying to understand what troubled her soul. He knew that the love they had so tenderly and passionately shared could no longer be all-encompassing. His heart beat in rhythm with her unresolved questions, and deep within his consciousness, a thought was born, a thought he had long feared to speak aloud. Drawing closer, with a hint of uncertainty yet with a determination he could no longer hide, he almost whispered, "Avery, I feel as though something within us is seeking an outlet. Not because our love is lacking, but because you deserve to experience something greater, something that can open new horizons for you." His words, like a quiet call, penetrated the very essence of her being. In that moment, time slowed down. Every word, every look became symbols of change. Within Avery, echoes of long-dormant desires began to stir, desires that beckoned her to where the boundaries of the familiar dissolved into an unknown realm of freedom and new sensations. She felt her heart, once held back by fears and doubts, begin to beat faster, opening itself to something uncharted and enticing. Cole continued, feeling his own soul yearning for the same. What if there were a way to give you what you seek without losing what we already have? What if our fears could be transformed into courage, and our desires into a new reality? Those words were imbued with sincerity and vulnerability. In every tone of his, there resounded a deep need not only to be loved, but also to be capable of offering something new, to expand the boundaries of the familiar. He understood that taking this step meant venturing beyond the confines of safety, overcoming the inner barriers that had prevented them both from attaining a fullness of life. Feeling each of Cole's words penetrating the deepest recesses of her soul, Avery allowed herself for the first time to consciously confront her inner uprising. Sparks of courage and determination flared in her eyes, mingled with a touch of sadness that the past could not be reclaimed, yet the future could still be rewritten. She sighed quietly, as if releasing the accumulated pain and doubts, and her barely audible voice said, "I have always sought more than just the safety of our embraces. I want to feel how life gives me new sensations, how every moment becomes a step toward the discovery of the unknown." With those words, an invisible line arose between them, dividing the past from the future. Cole's decision became the starting point, a turning point that could forever change their intimate life. In his gaze was a determination to take the risk, a readiness to give Avery what she so passionately desired, not merely physical intimacy, but a deep, transcendent experience capable of infusing their souls with new meaning. Thus began their quiet yet fateful conversation, where every word and every gesture was imbued with psychological depth and sincere emotion. It was a moment when love stepped beyond the threshold of the familiar, opening doors to the uncharted, where fears gave way to bold dreams and tenderness transformed into the resolve to move forward regardless of everything. At twilight in the luxurious Manhattan apartment, when the dim light and soft glow of the muted lamps created an atmosphere of mysterious intrigue, a quiet, almost imperceptible sound of an opening front door was heard. In that instant, the space was filled with a new energy, the appearance of 5 men, each of whom seemed to embody a different facet of seduction, ready to merge into a meticulously woven tapestry of passion. Logan was the first to step in. Tall, with an athletic posture and a gaze so confident, as if he knew all the secrets of the world, he slowly entered the room. His dark eyes, shining with inner resolve, glided across the space as if searching for the reflection of something left unsaid. A subtle hint of mystery surrounded him, an inner strength that spoke of fearlessness and profound passion. Following Logan, Mason appeared. His presence was marked by calm confidence and a gentle enigma. His soft facial features and slightly pensive gaze seemed capable of reading the unspoken desires of those around him. He moved with astonishing smoothness, as if every movement were part of a complex choreographic ritual designed to awaken the most hidden feelings. Carter was the third to enter. His confidence radiated in every gesture. He resembled a master of seduction, for whom every touch and every look carried a special meaning. His manner, his gentle smile, and the faint sparkle in his eyes made it seem as if he could open doors to uncharted sensations, offering what once had seemed impossible. Then Dylan entered the room, a man with a vivid, almost predatory expression in which boldness mingled with a certain gentle vulnerability. His movements were swift yet precise, as if every second of his was calculated down to the finest detail. His gaze, full of passion and promises, instantly captivated Avery, stirring within her a whirlwind of emotions, from a gentle flutter to a tumultuous anticipation of the inevitable. Landon was the last to step in. His presence was quieter, almost unnoticeable, yet within that quiet demeanor lay unbridled passion. He moved cautiously, as if fearing to disturb the fragile balance among the energies present. His perceptive and gentle gaze, as if able to read the most intimate thoughts, spoke of a depth capable of understanding and embracing both the darkest and brightest aspects of the soul. Each of these men, like living paintings, embodied different facets of seduction and passion. As they positioned themselves along the far wall, their gazes, sparkling with mysterious light, inevitably gravitated toward the center, toward Avery. Standing in the subdued light, she felt a new storm of emotions ignite within her chest. The looks of these strangers, filled with confidence and promises, penetrated the deepest corners of her consciousness, evoking not only physical excitement but also a psychological thrill, as if each new image revealed her most cherished dreams and forbidden desires. Watching this unexpected and almost ritualistic choreography, Cole experienced mixed feelings. From gentle excitement to a quiet bitterness upon realizing that the path to true fulfillment no longer lay solely within the narrow confines of the familiar. He saw how each new figure, with every step and subtle movement, approached the center of their intimate world, promising changes capable of forever rewriting the rules of their relationship. The moment seemed stretched into infinity, as light and shadow, confidence and doubt, passion and calm merged into a single whole. Each of the men began a slow, almost weightless movement, striving to touch, to gaze, to express that which words could not convey, a silent invitation to a world of sensual discoveries. In this theatrical game of seduction there was no place for chance. Everything was calibrated to perfection, as if the universe itself had conspired to grant Avery the opportunity to experience something different, uncharted, yet destined by fate. This room, filled with the soft whisper of anticipation, became a place where every facet of seduction acquired its own face, and every glance and movement transformed into a promise of unforgettable sensations. And while the subdued light continued to dance on the faces of the new guests, Avery felt within her the emergence of a mysterious call, a call ready to break the chains of the familiar, opening doors to a world where seduction and passion took on the most diverse and profound forms. At the moment when the evening twilight enveloped the spacious living room, the space ceased to be merely an arena for encounters. It transformed into a sanctuary of sensuality, where every touch, every sigh, and every whisper merged into one whole. Avery, as if captivated by the magnetism of the moment, surrendered herself to a flow of ecstasy, where the boundaries between the physical and the emotional dissolved, giving way to a pure, almost sacred energy. Her body, like a painter's canvas, captured every burst of passion. A light, almost imperceptible tremor ran along her skin as Logan, confident and resolute, was the first to approach, his hand gliding along her back, awakening deeply ingrained sensations. In that moment, Avery felt her nerve endings ignite with every drop of warmth that seeped through the fabric of her skin. Following him, Mason, with the softness and grace of a conductor of an invisible orchestra, wrapped his arms around her waist, his fingers tenderly and methodically tracing the curves of her body. Every touch seemed meticulously planned, evoking in Avery a wave of calm yet profound bliss. She felt as though each gesture resonated in her soul, as if he were writing an invisible poem upon her body, full of promises and unspoken words. Carter, whose confidence and determination were equally palpable, moved closer. His hand rested on her neck, delicately caressing the fine line between tenderness and passion. His touches were like the precise brushstrokes of an artist creating an image of a new reality, each movement imbued with meaning, and each look an invitation to boundless intimacy. At that moment, Avery felt a spark of liberation ignite within her. As if with every caress, old barriers melted away, giving space to a new sensation of wholeness. Dylan, with his predatory determination and gentle vulnerability intermingled, entered this sensual dance. His movements were both swift and meticulously refined, and his touch, strong and precise, awakened in Avery a feeling she had never known before, an unbridled, almost primal desire, where body and mind merged into a single stream of ecstasy. Every caress echoed in her memory like long-forgotten dreams, awakening the yearning she had so long concealed. Last, but not least, came Landon. His touches were delicate, almost ethereal, yet they concealed an inner strength that could carry one away into an endless realm of pleasure. He ran his hand along her hand, as if caressing the very essence of her being, and in that moment Avery felt all the elements, past, present, and future, all her fears and hopes, merge into one powerful sensation of freedom and unconditional acceptance. At that moment, when all 5 masculine touches merged into an endless symphony of caresses, Avery completely surrendered to the whirlwind of sensations. Her body, immersed in a state of total unity, seemed to dissolve into waves of pleasure. Every nerve, every cell responded to the rhythm of their touches, as though the universe itself were engaging in dialogue with her essence. Her emotions overwhelmed her so completely that the boundaries between the physical and the emotional vanished, yielding to one ecstatic surge. Psychologically, Avery experienced something beyond mere physical pleasure. It was the merging of deep-seated desires and innate fears, a long-awaited liberation from conventions and familiar confines. In this dance of passion, she found a reflection of her true essence, feeling her soul, once constrained by expectations and doubts, take flight, freeing itself from the weight of the past and opening up to new, uncharted sensations. In the sounds of subdued music, in whispers mingled with breaths, and in the pulse that slowed as if in time with her heart, Avery felt that every moment, every second, merged into one vast instant of eternity. She was no longer merely an observer of her feelings, she had become their living embodiment. In that state of complete fusion, her consciousness dissolved into a stream of ecstasy, and she allowed herself to be carried away to a place where there was neither pain nor doubt, only absolute unity with the entire world. And when it seemed that all the energy of the night had reached its apex, in that sacred moment of merging, the space around them filled with a quiet echo of satisfaction. The boundaries that once separated the body from the soul dissolved, leaving only a pure sense of boundless freedom and unity. Uplifted by this transcendent experience, Avery realized that true happiness lies not in fleeting pleasures but in a deep, all-encompassing connection with one's own essence, a world ready to accept her exactly as she is. Thus, in that sacred harmony, where the five facets of seduction merged into one continuous flow of sensual sensations. A true fusion of elements occurred, a moment in which every touch, every sigh, and every emotion became part of a grand symphony of passion, transforming and imbuing life with new meaning. When the last glimmers of night dissolved into the pre-dawn haze, the luxurious apartment was enveloped in a quiet serenity filled with the echoes of past emotions. The corners of the living room and hallway, which had once pulsed with passion, were now immersed in a deep, almost sacred silence, where every sound and every sigh served as a reminder of the ecstasy that had passed. Avery sat on the sofa, slightly hunched, as if trying to contain all the memories of the night when her body and soul had been swept away in a whirlpool of sensual sensations. Her eyes, tired yet filled with subtle glimmers of newfound understanding, wandered through the muted shadows of the room. In those quiet moments after the storm of passion, there emerged a feeling of cleansing as pain, fear, and doubts that had long been hidden in the depths gave way to an inexplicable tranquility and fresh, new thoughts. Cole, standing nearby, observed her with quiet reverence and an ineffable sorrow. His face, which had only recently been lit with determination and courage, now reflected the understanding that something had subtly changed between them. He saw in her gaze not only satisfaction but also a gentle sadness, like the quiet shadow that lingers after a bright flame. Every touch they had shared, every word spoken in the heat of passion, now echoed in that space of silence, leaving behind a bittersweet aftertaste of change. Moments filled with realization and inner dialogue dissolved into silence. Feeling every pulse in her body, Avery slowly recalled how that evening her emotions had merged with expectations, how her fears had dissolved in the waves of pleasure, yielding to a longing to explore the unknown. Yet in the silence, something new was also awakening, a quiet, almost elusive question about what boundaries of love can be crossed and what price one is willing to pay for complete self-expression. Cole moved closer, and an unspoken connection arose between them, one in which words were no longer needed. He gently took her hand, their fingers interlocked in a gesture of support and understanding. That moment was filled not so much with consolation as with the realization that their world would never return to its old rules, that new horizons had opened before them, full of possibilities and mysteries alike. In those quiet epilogues of the night, when the heat of passion gave way to contemplation, both understood that what they had experienced marked a turning point in their existence. Avery felt every cell of her body fill with new energy, awakening not only a thirst for physical unity but also a deep yearning for self-discovery. Her soul sought answers to questions that once seemed unfathomable, and in that quest, she felt that every step was a step toward freedom. Observing this inner metamorphosis, Cole realized that true love is not always expressed in clear words and familiar embraces. It is born in silence, in those quiet moments after the storm, when the courage to open up and admit one's vulnerability becomes the key to genuine unity. In his gaze, there lay a promise to be there, to support, and to accept every facet of her essence, even if the answers to many questions were still hidden within the labyrinths of her soul. Thus passed that final moment of the night, quiet yet filled with profound meaning, when each of them found something more than mere passion. It was a silence in which the echoes of desire mingled with fresh hopes for the future, a quiet epilogue to a tempestuous night, leaving behind a gentle shimmer of new understanding and the promise of inevitable change. In that residual silence, where every heart had found its own rhythm, remained a mystery. Is there enough courage to embrace oneself in one's entirety? And what new paths will open when the past yields to the future? These questions lingered like a quiet whisper, accompanying them at the threshold of a new day.